for the 3 minutes of waiting. They say, there we go. You see how technology could always just ruin things, but they say good things come to those who wait. And everyone has just waited for 3 minutes, so we can definitely get started for today's webinar. We already have a few people joining us. Our panelists are ready, and I'm also ready to have this very beautiful conversation, and also a conversation that will leave us motivated and ready to go out there and put our best foot forward. Aditi and Dumi have joined us. I'll read their bios a bit later. This is the Youth Month webinar hosted by the Youth Employment Service, and we have it as Unlock Your Future, Essential Employability and Work Readiness Strategies for Young Job Seekers, such as yourselves and myself at some point in my life. And I do think Dumi and Aditi and many other people that are joining us today, that we're all at some point job seekers and are always ready and looking for information on how do we present ourselves the best way possible. My name is Ntando Nkosi Kunene, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm a business development associate at Yes. I've got a background in entrepreneurship and education. You might not believe this, but I'm a teacher by profession, and I completely pivoted to doing my MBA, and I'm a mother to a 5-year-old, and have been working with young people for the past 10 years. So this is truly a passion of mine, to make sure that young people are ready and can participate in the economy as something that is quite crucial for the South African market. As we celebrate Youth Month, our primary objective really is to empower each and every one of you that has joined us. We've got amazing speakers that are experts in their fields, and they'll be sharing with us the many works and tips on how they got to be where they are and what they know about the different spaces in which they occupy. So as we navigate looking for a job, I think from a personal experience, I'll just share it briefly. Looking for a job is not as simple as a lot of people play it out to be. It is quite difficult, especially when it comes to how do I put together my CV in such a way that it's attractive for an employer to pick it up and actually give me a call. And once that has even been done, is how do I conduct myself in an interview? So I'm really excited that today we'll be able to address all of those questions in terms of making sure that your CV is ready, and making sure that once you even get your interview, that you are ready and confident to present yourself the best way possible. Right. So with this educational program, I hope that you do have your notebook so you can take notes, and also have your questions ready as we go on, because we will be utilizing our Q&A as well throughout the session, and we'll address those sessions towards the end of the program. Just a few housekeeping rules. We will be recording the session, so it will be sent out to each and every person that has attended, and you'll have access to this. So if you feel like you missed certain parts, you'll be able to just look through the recording again and make those tips. Please also utilize the Q&A, and more than anything, bring your positive energy, have an open mind, and every time one of our speakers speaks as well, if you do have any questions, don't be shy to just jot them down, write them for us here, so that we are able to answer them towards the end. Happiness? All right. So before we start with anything, I want to actually bring in Aditi as we just start, so she can tell us more about just how Yes works, because I do think that we have a lot of misconceptions as to when it comes to youth employability, where does Yes sit and what is the role of Yes? So Aditi, I'll read her bio before she comes on, because a lady of her caliber cannot just start talking without us reading as to who she is. So Aditi is the head of youth programs at the Youth Employment Service at Yes. Aditi leads a dedicated team to enhance youth employability with a strong focus on strategic and operational excellence. She manages the design, delivery, engagement, and monitoring and evaluation of the Yes Youth's journey. Her leadership has been instrumental in driving the success of various initiatives aimed at improving employment opportunities for young people. Aditi, welcome to our talk. How are you doing?
Great, thanks, Pando, and such a lovely topic to be discussing on Youth Month as well, and excited to be here.
Yeah, Aditi, I think with the short space of time I've also been at Yes, I think with the young people that we've interacted with on so many levels, there's always that question of how does Yes work? And maybe you could just briefly take us through that so that that person that's watching as well is able to understand what Yes does.
Sure. So at YES, we work with the private sector to create work opportunities for young people through these fully funded 12-month job experiences. And where YES comes in is we facilitate opportunities for young people between corporate companies and then unemployed youth. And so in this 12-month quality work experience, YES ensures three key pillars. One, for the youth is that they get on the job work experience so that we can close that gap on I can't get a job without experience and I can't get experience without a job. Secondly, we provide learning around work readiness, entrepreneurship, and now even digital skills to YES youth. And then thirdly, we provide a support function in terms of ensuring youth across our programs are receiving a standard quality of experience, as well as supporting them now in terms of mental fitness. We know when we come to work, we bring our whole selves. And from a YES perspective, we're working with our partner Psyched around the YES Mindful Matters initiative to support young people and ultimately make young people more employable.
Just briefly, I think it's always important for us when we have these conversations to not just have them at a very high level, but maybe Aditi, you could take us through also your employment journey. How was it like for you the first time you had to put together a CV, your fears, and the first time you even went to an interview? Just so everyone else is a bit more comfortable to say, okay, I'm not the only one that faces all these things when it's time to apply for a job or even the right job. Just take us through that.
So like yours, Nana, very, very colorful as well, and where my journey started and where I am right now. So like you transitioning from a teacher and now into business development, I in fact started out my career as a civil engineer and now I work and then I transferred into the leadership development space and now in terms of social development. And so I think a key learning in my 10 years plus of work experience right now is around keeping yourself open to opportunities. And when I first started my career, we all have this vision in mind of where we're going to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now. And once you are in the industry or working, you'll soon realize, especially where the world is going right now, is that you are never limited to just one industry or one job title. And your CV is a roadmap for where you have been, but it isn't necessarily where you will land up. And so if I reflect back as a young person, I was always focused on what is the job I'm going to have in 10 years from now. However, it's letting go of a picture you have in mind and looking at opportunities that are in front of you and how you leverage that to get to the next job, your next business, your next opportunity and network as well.
No, that's absolutely insightful. You were speaking about how YES provides that quality work experience for young people, which is obviously that partnership between YES and corporates where young people are on the receiving end. So maybe in your journey, did you have somewhat of what looked like a quality work experience for a year, or did you do any work where you were just volunteering and not actually getting paid? And in terms of experience as well, did you go through anything of that nature?
When I look back at my career, so I decided to study civil engineering because I wasn't really sure what worked 10 years ago, but engineering was a hot topic. And I was lucky to get into studying engineering. And so in my second year of studying engineering, I was able to get a bursary from a corporate company. And that help kickstart my journey into the industry. It was definitely a benefit versus waiting in your final year of studies, or if you're coming straight out of high school to find a job. So that for me was definitely a benefit and something that I was able to leverage. How I was able to get that bursary, or what I consider a key factor in me getting it, was throughout university, I volunteered, I mentored, I joined a lot of NGOs, mentoring other young people. And that in itself created this opportunity to be seen as a young leader and someone that a company could invest in. And I think for me, that's such a critical need right now when our job market is highly competitive. Opportunities may seem scarce, and so you have to think about how you stand out from the crowd.
And the reason, Aditi, why I asked you that question is because obviously having worked with young people for the many years in which both you and I have, there's always that question of, do I really have to volunteer? Do I really have to? I mean, YES doesn't offer any sort of internship because we do provide that quality work experience, but does that come in handy? So, which is why I asked you that. So, as you're sharing your story, it just reiterates the importance of that, of putting yourself out there in varsity, being a part of an NGO or anything of that nature, just so you give yourself that somewhat of an experience so that by the time you write your CV, there's something that you're writing. Maybe the one thing that you wrote in your first CV, I'm not trying to give away our age, but I remember the first time I wrote a CV, I had that curriculum vitae in blue. Remember on Microsoft Word?
Microsoft Word and Word Art.
Exactly. So now when you do that for the first time, and there's obviously that experience part, what was your experience that you put in there first?
Yeah, and so you can look at a number of things, and so I am still a yes, still a youth, and so I still fit the bracket. But things have changed since I started my first job, and right now the world is actually ruled by social networking, right? And you can either use social network to your detriment, or you can use it as an asset, and so think about how we leverage the opportunities in front of us. When I think back to my first CV, or the first interview I actually had, was for the volunteering opportunity. And I remember it was while I was at university, and I had gone into the interview, and the first thing I had told the lady interviewing me was, I'm really nervous. This is the first time I'm being interviewed. And so it was a little less structured, or I would say not as important as your first full-time job, or if you are going and looking for employment. But it gave me a really good experience. She made me feel comfortable. And that experience of taking that first leap, of saying, I am nervous if it's your first time, being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, even when you're not sure, is quite receptive nowadays. It's, as a young person, what we are finding in industry is, as a young person, we think we need to come in with this whole lot of experience and be the expert in the room. What our employers know better at the moment, or in that moment, is that we don't expect you to know everything. What we would expect is that you ask a lot of questions to find out and be more curious. And that spark and that curiosity builds confidence in your interest in the work that you do for a potential employer, and the attitude that you bring to the workplace. And so attitude is such a key thing. Even when you feel rejected and dejected from having a number of employers tell you, no, not this time, is every job interview or every CV you submit, share a little bit of positivity, share that bit of your attitude in the way you present yourself, whether on paper or online nowadays with online interviews, or when you show up in person.
I want to cut you there, Aditi. I'm going to jump at you because I want us to play this other video, and then we'll come back to this conversation. Just give me a few seconds. Technology can be a bit tricky, so I'm going to share my screen so that you watch this video that we had compiled at YES. You let me know if you can hear the sound. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. You'll let me know about the sound as well.
After you complete your matric.
Can you hear that?
Yes?
Aditi, can you hear the sound?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start it from scratch again. Thank you.
After you complete your matric, you're not really sure what to do. Before the year's program, it was a bit difficult coming from a household where no one is employed. My dad was working for a company for over 20 years. COVID hit, and then they retrenched him.
It's every student's dream that after you're done studying, you want to get employed. It seemed like all that stuff had been put on pause for me.
Thinking about it and how I started, it gets so emotional because you're like, I thought I was gonna give up, that thing should have killed me. I found out about the YES program through social media, Facebook.
What had happened in the program was far more better than what we were supposed to receive and get as the youth of our job.
They did not need any experience. They did not need any qualifications.
I was under Wakanda Food Accelerator, sponsored by Ford. So I was given the opportunity to upskill myself. So now I have my own restaurant.
I believe that one was not born to be motionless. So we have to continuously evolve ourselves. You just have to allow yourself to be taught, and then you get the best out of the internship program.
Some of the soft skills that taught us how to actually navigate throughout the corporate industry. So things such as taking interviews, how to navigate in boardroom meetings, how to engage people, how to be enticing, how to network.
I have recruited more than 5 ladies.
So most of my peers just sitting at home complaining about employment. So I encourage them to use their skills to start something.
Don't give up.
If you give up, it's going to get worse.
Be consistent and continue pushing.
There are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of posts that are coming out.
Don't just sit at home and be like, I studied for this is what I want. Whenever an opportunity comes, just go and get it. You don't know where it lead to. Sign up to YES today and change South African youth lives.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but it's always so heartwarming to see such stories and the work that YES as an organization does in benefit of young people across the country. One of the young people they spoke about, if you give up, it'll get worse. And Aditi, you had said, when it comes to attitude, right? But also, you also are a big advocate of developing skills of in-demand jobs. Like, how do you balance that with having a positive attitude?
Yeah. A quick answer is observation. And so at YES, we are focused a lot on understanding future-facing sectors where there is a growing demand for job opportunities. And where we see that right now is in areas such as information technology, green energy, example, solar panels, drones, creative industry, as well as even baristas. And so for us, it's understanding what is happening within your community, the country, where are the problems that we face, and then how can we turn those problems into opportunities? When you look at, for example, our load shedding issues within South Africa, is out of that crisis came opportunity for solar panel installers and installations. And so work opportunities and demand in the space is growing, and ultimately leading to these new sectors coming up that we can leverage. And so as a young person, it's critical to understand what's happening in terms of current affairs, what are challenges, and then how can you be part of the solution, and look at companies or even start your own company to be part of that solution. That is critical right now to understand what are in-demand skills on the ground.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo what Dumi had just typed on the group, just to also bring her in. She said, "Luck is when opportunity meets preparation." So, Dumi, Dumetse, I'm going to actually call your full name, and I hope I don't butcher your surname. It's Dumetse Sechidi, is a career coach at SITE. So, Dumi is a career coach and was born and raised in Soweto, a mom to two teenage boys, a medical science undergraduate who pivoted out of sciences by enrolling into a BBA. She has been in recruitment for 23 years. Okay, so that already tells me that Dumi is going to share quite an extensive part of recruitment, because I think we all have a bit of a tiff when it comes to with recruiters, right? So she has 23 years in recruitment, is a published author, career coach, and a speaker. Career coaching is purpose work for her. It helps her pour into others by helping them with tools, guidance, support as they navigate their careers to achieve professional success, whether it be goal setting, career development, mock interviews, CV write-ups, or personal branding. Dumi, welcome to our chat. I'm sure you were wondering, when am I actually coming in to talk about my 23 years of experience?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Yeah. The 23 years, I'm sure, tells you that I'm no longer in the youth category, right?
Yeah, no, but you know what? As young people, we appreciate people that have such extensive experience, because it teaches us quite a lot as well. And with the person that has had 23 years in recruitment, I mean, how did recruitment you look 23 years ago, and how does it look like right now, especially for young people?
So 23 years ago, it looked like manual labor. It looked like, responding to job ads on newspapers. Now, I think, I mean, it's more reachable in the sense that it's more digitalized. So a lot of opportunities do find online, whether it be on LinkedIn, Indeed, or Career Junction. So yeah, it's more, sort of, at your disposal. You can see it more now than back then. So opportunities are out there, they are available. It is just, finding a strategy to find the opportunities that you're looking for on that.
Yeah. Before we get to the strategies, because I think before I get to have a strategy, I need to actually have a proper, well-crafted CV, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us get the CV writing very wrong. And maybe what have you seen have been the common mistakes in which people do when they write their CVs? And what would you actually maybe advise us to do in our future applications when it comes to CV writing?
So I think the biggest pitfalls are around not being, there's a strategy even with writing a CV, right? I think the most pertinent things in terms of your CV, highlight your education, highlight your skills, highlight what makes you commercially viable. So what is it about you that sets you apart, right? Aditi said, be someone an organization can invest in. So what do you have to pour into that organization, right? A lot of the YES youth have had experience for a period of time. As you gather the experience, put together a portfolio of evidence. What are the things that you've done where you've excelled? What are the things that you've done that have, sort of, there was a light bulb moment, and skills that you can then take to your next job. Those are things that you've achieved, right? So, and those are things that you want to put in your CV so that it makes you a viable player for the next organization. So I'd say definitely keep it to 2 pages. I mean, I'm speaking to youth, right? But people that have a lot of experience want to put all the experience over 10 pages, pitfall. Nobody's reading that 10-page CV. So a 2-page CV is succinct, it's enough. Don't put your references on your CV, especially with the POPI Act. You want people to almost ask you, for your references. Don't put them up front. And then always sort of at the top part of your CV, make sure that you've got your education, you've got your key skill and roles of interest, and you've got your career achievement.
Okay, great. I'm also just something that Aditi said earlier in terms of where she studied civil engineering, but obviously there are other types of roles in which she has done. And obviously, to apply for those specific roles, you can't technically maybe use a civil engineering CV. So when it comes to customizing that for specific job roles, do you find that a lot of people will just send the same CV to 5 employers? And what would you maybe just give an input on that in terms of customizing that CV? And obviously, again, a lot of corporates as well would ask for a cover letter. Do we send the same cover letter to all 5 organizations? Maybe you could take us through tips on how do we get that right?
Awesome. I think where I'll start, the baseline where I'll start is that do not get fussed about what your undergrad qualification is. Your undergrad qualification shows that you've got the ability to learn, right? And any job that you walk into will have an onboarding. There'll be somebody who's going to sit with you. You'll have a buddy. You'll get taught how to do the job. So don't get fussed. If you've got a civil engineering degree, a medical science degree, you can do technically a lot of jobs, right? So Aditi could have ended up in management consulting, for instance, or could have ended up in banking. You know what I mean? And undergrad shows you've got the ability to learn. So don't get fussed about it. Don't go choosing roles that are specific to that. So that's one. And then the second thing is when you're applying for specific roles online, it is important to read the job description and the key performance areas of the role, right? A lot of the times what we do is that we've got this one CV that we apply with to every role. It's not going to work, guys. You need to tailor make your CV. Yeah, are you guilty?
So at some point in my life, I have to admit, at some point in my life, it's probably when I was 21, 22, you're just sending it because, you know, you've crafted it and you're just sending it throughout to all employers.
Yeah. So when you look at career development, right, at its essence, it's about understanding, you know, with the skill that I have. So maybe you are in a customer services role or a sales role, but there's an admin element, you know what I mean? So there are quite a number of elements to who you are and what you're delivering at work. So it's being able to say, right, in this job, I've been able to do these many things now, which means you can apply to multiple roles. Now, as you apply to multiple roles, you look at a job description, you look at the transferable skills. So the KPIs, what is it about this role? What does it deliver? And then you doctor your CV according to that job description where your transferable skills meet. So I always say to candidates, you have to mirror your CV to the job description. We work now with a digital, we're in the digital era, right? So every time you throw a CV into an applicant tracking system, it's reading your CV and it's throwing it out if it doesn't match the job description. To give yourself a chance and to give yourself an opportunity to get shortlisted, you have to mirror the CV such that, you know, the two, you know, sort of speak to each other. And if it's even 70% of what is in the spec, your CV will be shortlisted for the role. But you put yourself at a, you know, at a disservice if you're throwing in the same CV for an admin role, a credit role, you know, a sales role, a customer, you know, call center role. So I always say at the top of your CV when it says key skill, call center, sales, admin, so put all of them so that the CV can be picked up by an applicant tracking system.
Yeah, and you, I mean, mention even with the transferable skills aspect, because I think most times when a lot of young people write CVs, I will write my job title and not necessarily write the meat as to what was I actually doing within that role. And from there onwards, how do I move it to my next role, to my the role that I want to go into in future? And I want to just quickly bring Aditi in when it comes to like that CV aspect and that reference aspect, as you would know that, yes, obviously after that 12-month quality work experience, our young people get to go away with that CV and that reference letter. And maybe Aditi, you could just take us through the success rate of that intervention.
Yeah. So when YES started, we did a lot of research around what makes a youth more employable. And so part of the YES experience, and once you near your 12th month of the work experience, YES provides all our YES youth with a reference letter based on the learning that a YES youth has done during their time with us, feedback from their supervisor, and then to share more about the type of work that they did. Secondly, we provide them with a completion certificate around the YES program to validate the experience. And then third is the CV. And so for us, these documents are critical employability documents because it documents the experience you have. And our research shows that this can make you 3 times more employable than someone that doesn't. And so having these types of documents and refining it, as Tumi you've shared, is refining that for the different roles you have is critical. We have now created more than 145,000 work experiences to date at YES. And of our alumni, 45% of them are in some type of employment post the program as well. And so it's testament to how putting yourself out there, gaining experience, even if it is in a field you thought you might not be in, it's creating those opportunities and then using those opportunities, as Tumi you rightly shared, is showing how you can translate skills. Whether you're a packer in ShopRite and you now want to become an admin assistant, you can show how you did a really good job at being organized, or you love the attention to detail, and you did something special while you were in your role in the bakery in ShopRite. And I'm using these very fundamental roles to show that you don't have to have these fancy degrees right now. It's practical work experience actually can trump having a formal qualification. Research is showing that at least 2 years of practical work experience can trump just having a matric certificate or qualification, and how you leverage that years of experience and share the value you've gotten out of it and how that can be an asset to your future employer or your future business is critical right now.
I want us to actually touch on the soft skills aspect. And I know that with the youth that go through the YES program, that is also very much emphasized with that work readiness module. But I want Tumi to ask you, when it comes to, we spoke about social media as a form of networking, because obviously now maybe a lot of us use it for just posting pictures and doing TikToks and so forth. And even on LinkedIn, it's just updating on, oh, this is the event I attended. So how could we be more strategic with how we use our LinkedIn to make ourselves visible to future employers?
So it's, your LinkedIn is a professional network. Yes, it's becoming a lot like Instagram these days, but it is a professional network. Have a professional picture. Make sure that your about section is filled in, and your about section really must display your skills and experience, but also your career highlights and what sets you apart, from the next candidate. Make sure that it's fully filled in. Use tabs like, open for work, because then recruiters notice you when you've done that. But also join groups on LinkedIn, that are, especially things that you'd like to learn about, core sort of skills that you are sort of keen to engage, or topics of interest. It is about also engaging the market. A lot of people are posting, career coaches, thought leaders, engage that sort of market and the topics, and have your say in there. Eventually people start noticing you, right? But as you notice recruiters, I've placed quite a number of people that have actually DM'd me on LinkedIn and said to me, I've got a CV, I don't know quite what I'm looking for. Can you help? To me, I'm looking for a role. You never know what organization has roles. Some roles we advertise, some roles we do not advertise. But by actually DMing a person, be short, be succinct. This is who I am. These are the skills I have. I'm looking for opportunities. Drop your CV in there. Not a lengthy, mailer. You know what I mean? We don't know each other. Don't send me like a 2-page love letter, but a short, succinct thing. And I'm able to then look at your CV and give you pointers or point you in the right direction. The one thing about recruiters or any fraternity, especially HR, is that you've got a large community and a big network, right? I might not have the opportunity at that point. However, I'm able to send you to your CV to somebody else who might have an opportunity. So do not be afraid to engage people on LinkedIn. Do not be afraid to email people, which is like a DM on LinkedIn. And do not be afraid to actually post and say, I'm looking for opportunities. These are my skills. Can anybody help?
You know, you had mentioned that setting on LinkedIn that says open to work. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I read it, but it did say that somehow recruiters are turned off by people that put on that open to work. Have you found that it works?
No, it absolutely works. How am I?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it absolutely works because people are able to see that you're actually on the market.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there because
Yeah.
people don't know what they don't know, right? So
Mm.
LinkedIn is used as a sourcing tool. So people might be sourcing for specific skills and not finding your profile, but not knowing that you're actually on the market and looking. But what you do is that you make yourself part of that 1% that is actively on the market and at the forefront of a recruitment community that is looking for talent on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
definitely use it.
Okay. I just want to remind our attendees to also just utilize that Q&A just so we get Aditi and Dumi to answer a few questions that you have. But Dumi, you also spoke then about there are those hidden jobs, right? Where
Yeah.
you need to somewhat be in the circle of that. And you briefly touched on it, but maybe for a young person that feels like, you know what, I'm shy, where do I even start, in terms of those hidden roles? Because there are some points where it's just within the organization. So how, as a young person, do I open myself up to that, of those hidden roles?
I think we have to, sort of start being aware that, sometimes rejection is redirection. That's one. But, what's the worst that can happen? Don't catastrophize everything, right? I know you're shy, but how are you going to get your foot in the door if you don't send that email? So send an email. If you're shy, don't email, but find the email address for the organization and send. And guys, here's the trick. Every recruiter uses it, right? So Standard Bank will have a standard mailer, like an email address, Try a few sort of combinations. You can Google it. ChatGPT can help you with quite a lot of these as well. So just email somebody and say, here's I get a lot of those, So when I've got time, what I do is that I work through them. So some will say, can I send you my CV? I'll read through the CV and say, you know what, in terms of steer, this is where you need to go. These are your core skills, etc. But shy or not, unfortunately, the world of work will need you to be courageous. If you want it, you're going to have to go fetch it, unfortunately, right? But like Aditi said, I like what you said, Aditi, about walking into an interview and saying, this is my first time. I had a candidate who was amazing. And I said, you walk in and say, this is who I am. I'm a bit shy. I'm a bit timid, but I'm working on it. What that showcases is self-insight. It's saying, I know myself. I know that this is an area for development, but it's something that I'm willing to work on.
I actually want, that was going to be my next step. I'm like, okay, now we've got the CV right. And now I've been called in for an interview. And like Aditi was saying, this is my first interview, but maybe for another person, it's my second interview. And there are obviously ways in which you should conduct yourself in interviews. Maybe you could also just give our audience just a few tips and tricks on, now that I've landed my first interview, how do I go about it? Like, what would be the first common question that is asked? What do I say and why do I not say? Especially when it comes to strengths and weaknesses. Like, which one do I say and which one do I leave out? So maybe you could just tell us a bit more about that in terms of, now I've got my interview and what?
Okay, awesome. So now you've got your interview, right? The job was advertised as a job description. Go back, read your job description, understand what the role delivers. So there will be an area that says key performance areas, and that speaks to what they need you to do in the job. I can never sort of overemphasize the need to prep, guys. Even when I have gone for interviews, I've been in recruitment for over 23 years. When I've gone for interviews, I've always prepped. What it does for you is that your answers are at the tip of your tongue, right? And the common questions that they'll ask you is, tell us a bit about yourself. So have an elevator pitch about you. When you speak to, this is where Aditi is, that's her elevator pitch. When you talk about where I've been, that's my elevator pitch. And that's what I use in terms of introducing myself to people. Now, an elevator pitch talks to who you are, where you've been. And I always say, mix a bit of career and personal, right? Because you're a fully encompassing human being. So that's one. Tell us a bit about yourself. And then they'll ask you, what value do you bring to the organization? That's why it's important to have a portfolio of evidence for yourself to say, I have been the most amazing packer, to Aditi's point, and this is what I did. These are the gaps that I saw. This is how I closed them, etc. Right? Then they'll ask you, what are your areas for development? And talks to self-insight. What I always say with areas for development, make sure that whatever area for development it is, make sure that you say, this is my area for development. I'm aware. This is how I'm working on it. What you want is to close it with, this is how I'm working on it. It can be an open-ended area for development, because then you're going to have a follow-up question of what are you doing about it? Do you know what I mean? So an area for development, how you close it off, and what sort of speaks to your strength. So it must speak to a strength that you have, which is self-insight. This is what I've realized about myself, but this is how I'm working on it, right? So those are some of the questions that you'll get asked in an interview, but a big one is, what value do you bring? And then what is your 3-month plan walking into an environment that you might not know? And what are some of the things you need to work on to help transition as quickly as possible? And the answer to that is, you walk in, you sit with people, you understand the scope of work, you understand what the delivery looks like, and then you sort of work very closely with certain people to just upskill on systems, on anything that you need to deliver on. You leverage people within that organization.
No, thank you for that. I think the biggest question is that any young person that goes into an interview is, what value do I bring into the organization?
Yeah.
Which is something that's quite crucial, so that even the HR is able to see, when this person comes in, this is what they're going to bring in. Aditi, I know that you speak a lot on like the soft skills aspect, and it's obviously something that even when we are the work readiness platform with the modules, that's also an actual thing of getting young people work ready. What have you found has worked, and what evidence can be presented to say these modules actually work, and this is where young people are, this is where they were before, and this is where they currently are using that work readiness modules on the app, on the Yes One app?
At Yes, we've created a foundational base of some of the key skills that you would need to thrive in the workplace. And what we see is that whether you are a young graduate straight out of university or someone that just completed matric with no tertiary education, is that when you enter the workplace, there's certain types of etiquette, confidence, management of your time, and professionalism that is critical for everybody. And we all struggle with it, no matter the qualifications we come into the workplace with. And so the skills and the learning that we provide to Yes Youth focus around work readiness, as I mentioned, entrepreneurship, and now digital around AI. The work readiness aspects, one of the most popular modules or courses on the work readiness journey is around growth mindset. And I think that's such a critical thing when you are looking to get into the workplace, and then also when you enter the workplace and have to continuously grow. So we are talking now about interviews, but it's also when you get that interview, how do you sustain that growth and that excitement? It's not a milestone that you achieve and then you sit back and you're like, I'm done, right? And so growth mindset is a key aspect to unlocking all other aspects as well. What we also see as popular modules that we get feedback on is time management, priority management, and then how do you show up in terms of professionalism? Depending on your work setting, our youth work in multiple environments. And so while you are a certain type of personality, it's how do you connect with others in your environment? How do you adapt to the environment? Are you thriving in it, or are you drowning in it? And then how do you leverage those opportunities that you're currently in to create more opportunities. So it's multiple factors that lead towards success. There is no one key. And so for us, it's how do you leverage those different skill sets that each one of us possess in different ways to unlock new opportunities.
You know, they say an hour is just not enough. It feels like we've been talking for just 15 minutes, but with just a few minutes that we have to go, Aditi, you touched on professionalism, right? And I think also another big aspect of now that you've found a job, that transition from not working to now being in an environment where you are reporting to someone. And maybe you could just give us in terms of how does a young person rather, make that quick adjustment from owning your own time to being accountable to your time to someone?
Yeah. And that's an interesting question. So when we think about how do we adjust in the workplace, especially that first 1 to 3 months where we're either like, this is for me or this ain't for me, right? I remember my first job as a civil engineer, straight out of university, and a couple months in, I'm like, why did I do this? I think I'm actually a better fashion designer, and I'm gonna leave. I gave myself 2 more months, and then I started actually getting more comfortable. And so when you enter the workplace and it's your first few months in the job, a key word to keep in mind is adaptability, is read your surroundings, see what works. If you are in an environment where during COVID, work from home was almost a standard, but as we transition out of that, there's many work environments where work from home is not very conducive right now. And so it shows your adaptability if you're able to be in the office, be present, connect with the people. It is, while we see work from home and flexibility as a key asset nowadays, being in an office environment, being around like-minded people is also important for creativity. So read your environment. While not everything in our work environment aligns to our natural personalities, it's how you can leverage the good aspects and make it enjoyable for yourself and the people around you. And ensure your networking is so important, not just social media network, but when you're in a new environment, is get to know the managers above you and get to know the people from another team. Spread your wings far and wide and be known within your work environment from an early starting point.
Yeah, I think that adaptability one is very important, because if you're owning your time, you can wake up at 9. But if you are now accountable to someone, you might have to wake up at 5, at 6, depending on how far work is. So those kind of changes, you need to be able to kind of quickly adapt to them so that you don't lose out on such big opportunities. So we have a stack of questions that have come through. And there's one burning question to me. Maybe you'll help us answer it. But once you are in your interview, now you've answered very well in terms of what value that you bring into the organization. And then now it's time to talk. Now there's a big elephant in the room as to, okay, so what is your salary expectation? How do I even begin to answer that question when it is brought up?
Awesome. So I want to answer 2 questions. There was a question around a competency-based interview, right? Guys, Google the STAR method of answering questions: situation, task, action, and result. If you look at WhatsApp now, it's got AI Meta. Go in there and say, please research competency-based interviews for an admin role. I swear to God, I've been doing that. I got an NDA from Meta the other day. I got a sales contract from there. So utilize your WhatsApp. That tool that is there, it's giving you, it will give you the questions and answers, and you can prep for that. That's an easy one. So situation, task, action, result. And then the second part that you asked me in terms of salary, right? It's an uncomfortable question, but what I always say is that you ask, what is the budget for the role? That's the first question you can ask. And sometimes, people will be like, they don't want to tell you. Then you say, so the other thing I always say, before you go into the interview, actually go into Glassdoor, guys. Glassdoor.co.za, go in there. It will give you industry, according to industry and role, what salaries the market is paying. and then it will give you an idea. Not every salary will sort of be a match, but you can walk in there with confidence and say, I would like a salary in the range of. So maybe 10 to 15,000. Whatever your bottom line is, always make sure it's what you are comfortable to sort of earn. Don't ever sell yourself short. You can always negotiate, right? You can say anything between 10 to 15,000 negotiable, and it might land you at 12,000 or it might land you at 10. That's why I always say the 10 must be what you're comfortable with, right? Or you also can say the net income that I would like. So my take home needs to be X. And then you sort of left them with, food for thought, because then they're going to have to or run it behind the scenes and then see if they're comfortable with that. But they're always comfortable.
So now, Dumi, I go into an interview and you talked about not selling yourself short, right? But also there's a young person sitting there, they're really hungry for an opportunity. So how do we strike the balance between not coming across as if, okay, this is all about the money, even though sometimes it really can be, and also the opportunity that it's presenting for you? So how do you strike the balance between that? Just very briefly.
So I would say, I've done my research, and industry saying it's paying X. I'm not sure what the budget for this role is. However, what I'd be comfortable with would be X. So I'm really keen on the opportunity. I've heard about the culture of this organization. I really want to work here. Done my research. The industry is saying it's paying X. This is where I'd be comfortable, with. So the take home I'd be comfortable with is X. Or I would be comfortable with the range between this and that. The range gives you room to wiggle. It's wiggle room, right? So it does help. But I would say you almost reaffirm that you are really keen on the opportunity.
Yes.
But the fact of life is that we are living in a world where there's inflation, etc. So qualify that you've done your research, and based on the research, this is what you found. And because you don't have line of sight of the budget, this is the range that you are looking at, and they can give you a sense if that works for their budget as well.
Okay, awesome. We've got 6 minutes left, and I want to utilize the 6 minutes as, as impactful as possible. We've got a question here, Dumi, as well, that says, but what if now I'm in the interview and the range in which I've given, they're saying they've got a lower budget. So what then? What do I do then?
But then they must tell you the budget. So I want you to walk into that room with confidence and ask for the budget. So they won't ask you so they won't say, well, you are lower than our budget if they haven't given you the budget, right? So walk in and ask what the budget for the role is. And ideally, before you even walk into the interview, understand what the budget is. And I've always said this to everybody, understand what the budget is before you go for the interview, because it might really be low. And never ever look desperate. Guys, I know times are tough, we're looking for jobs, etc. But never come across as too desperate, because people will take advantage of it.
All right. No, ladies, thank you so much. But before I let you go, Aditi, you can comment, but while you're commenting with that, I want you to also have your parting words in terms of what encouragement would you give to a young person that has listened to the webinar and is going to be looking for a job starting off tomorrow, or they have an interview, or maybe someone hasn't actually started and they don't know where to start. Maybe if we could just end it off on a beautiful tone as to how the words of encouragement that you would give. On top of that, I know, but I just want us on top of that to answer this question of a culture fit. How do I make sure that I'm also a culture fit within where I want to work? Find a way.
Great. Happy to go first. And I think a critical part to me, you mentioned such valuable insights as well. What we see, I interview a number of young people within YES for the roles we put out as well, is we often forget as young people, or we aren't guided in knowing that it's also an opportunity for us to interview the company. And so that comes to, that critical question of, it's the end of the interview, what questions am I supposed to ask? Those questions, if you really are not interested in the company and forcing this relationship, is going to be very hard to come by. However, if it is a company that you are interested in, in and really want to work in that industry or the role in itself, is it's your opportunity to reverse the interview on the company and think about the questions you ask in that manner. And that's leading to the aspect of culture fit. I think for me, when I look back at the different companies I've worked for, what I typically do is I do go into LinkedIn and search the company, and then you get a tab around the people that work at the company. And I do my research on the people that work in the company and think, is this the people that I want to be around? Or whatever is in the news, I Google the company's name and see whether they were in the news for good or bad headlines. And is this the type of news I want to associate myself with? So I think those are quick ways, indirectly, other than asking the company those questions, to understand, am I good culture fit or not? I'm going to end with my parting thought there as well around, I think for me, a big light bulb moment from my own experience recently was around, we often talk about going confident. We use the word confident all the time, but it's like, how do I actually be confident? What is confident? And for me, a key spark was confidence is the outcome of experience. The more experience you have, the more your confidence will grow. So you have to go through those hard, difficult, embarrassing moments that leads to you becoming more confident. And so my parting thought is around, you have to go through the experience to build confidence.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for that. Dumi, what are your parting words?
My parting words are just in terms of, the culture of the organization of being a culture fit. Sometimes you won't be a culture fit, and that's okay. That's why I talk about redirection. So sometimes rejection is redirection, and that's okay. Sometimes that organization is just not a fit for you, and you are not going to thrive there. You don't want to have a fish climbing a tree. That saying. So it's okay that you're not the culture fit for that organization. And then I think my parting words would be, guys, do your research, make sure you prep for your interviews, understand the key performance areas of each role, understand the organization that you're interviewing for. But more than anything, you've got so much at your disposal. Like I say, WhatsApp is that AI tool now. Go and ask it questions, it will answer you. And then I've put in there good questions to ask. But there's a question around what questions do I ask the interviewees, But yeah, so over prep, I would say over prep. So for me, especially for African kids or people where English is not their first language. So if you're Afrikaans is your first language and English is your second language, to be confident in that interview, you need to have prep so that every answer comes quickly. It's at the tip of your tongue. But when you haven't prepped, it won't be there. You know what I mean? First, I have to translate from Zulu to English, and then I've delayed myself. Now I've panicked. So definitely, always prep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And what I'm gathering is preparation. Aditi and Dumi, thank you so much for joining us today. I think our session has been rather wonderful, and I think a lot of the young people have gathered a lot of knowledge and are going to implement it from today onwards. To everyone that attended, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time in the evening, and I hope this was also very fruitful for you. So thank you, and wishing each and every person the best in everything that they do. From Yes to You, we love you and goodbye.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.